all my terrible cancelable stuff now before you cut it out.
Yes, yeah, all of it. If you want to say anything racist, let's just do that now.
Let's just get it out of the way.
We kind of all start this career in the same route. We kind of all are into movies or into comics or whatever that they and then they how we break in is sort of through the same route as anybody, but there's certain of us, especially like you're a perfect example of, but you got kind of major breaks. Like how'd you get an agent and all that kind of stuff, and then that it'll bring us to today, and then I'll briefly talk into where that brings us together and comics and stuff like that, and we'll end on that note.
Okay,
So I'll just let you talk, and then I'll intervene whenever I have questions.
I gotcha. Yeah, please stop me because I have a track record of rambling during these kinds of interviews. If I don't feel like the interviewer is stopping me or punctuating all the stuff I say, and so I'll just keep talking. But uh, my professional career as an actor, so don't start with high school, but it started right after high school.
Okay.
I started. I grew up in the Washington D.C. area, and I saw a listing online on Facebook or somewhere for um, background extra casting in the one show that was taping in our area, which was House of Cards. And so I went to that. They were taking anybody who owned a business suit and could be an extra in that environment. And so I did that for a season while I was in my first year of college.
Was it
Um,
season one of House of Cards, like, or was it already been
no, it
going?
was one of the middle seasons of
Okay,
that show.
dang, I didn't realize that's been go on for that long. I remember when that was a new show.
I guess I'm a little bit younger than you, but it started in 2013.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
that to me, like that's like I was 23. But yeah, to me that doesn't feel that long ago when really it was 10 years ago. We
yeah,
we all try to pretend that we're not as old as we are.
sure. Um, and so I did that for a semester, and well, for my first year of college, and then I was not feeling the computer science major that I was in, and so one day I just packed up my stuff and drove out during the summer to LA to learn more about the industry, thinking it would be a fun summer thing to do, and it turned into a gap semester, and that gap semester has never ended. And so
Whoa,
it's
that's awesome. So you started as an extra in Washington D.C. Was that just like, so you said that were for a summer. So were you an extra like over and over again for that show and just for House of Cards, or was it a one day, one weekend thing?
no, it was a recurring like college job I had while I was in school. They would I basically
Yeah, fill me
some
in on a day in the life of that. Well, as an extra on House of Cards that lasted a whole summer. That sounds like the best summer gig for someone that wants to get
well,
into.
it lasted an entire school year
Whoa,
basically.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, so um day in the life. I never got to meet any of the main cast really. Like they were always shooting on different days and different months, but I got to work with a lot of the supporting cast members because I played an intern in the House of Card universe's version of the Washington Post. And so they were like a newspaper company, and we'd go around and pretend to copy things in the printer without making any noise at all because the microphones would pick it up and they want to hear the actors talk, and just walk around the office and just file folders and just mime busy work in an office, and
But so
that's what
you
it was
did you
like.
play like basically a single role over and over again, or did they have you do a different role throughout?
Almost every time they had me playing the same thing. I mean, it's not that anyone kept track of my character's name or the continuity of the storyline that had anything to do with the character, but I was more or less doing the same thing every time in a similar environment.
So you were a nameless character that they needed a lot. I need to read. I only watched the first season of House of Cards back in the day. I thought it was amazing, and I just never continued it. But that was my background is weird. From 2003 to 2006, I was basically incognito living in Yellowstone National Park. But
I mean, would
anyway,
you live in a van or something? Like, what was the deal?
no, I worked out there. And
Uh,
essentially inside the park, especially at that time, they didn't have cell phone towers. They aren't the way the national parks work is like the government tries to keep it as authentic as possible to the age that it was built in or like established, which was in the 1800s. So they don't allow, like, even if you like the companies that build hotels there, those they all they're doing is renovating the hotels that were established there hundreds of years ago. So like you're not allowed
hmm.
to they like wouldn't allow people to build cell phone towers. So I didn't really have internet access or cell phone access. Um Eventually you got it, or it was spotty and stuff like that. And nowadays they've changed the rules to where they allow cell phone towers as long as they're like hidden or something like that. I can't remember the rules. Anyway, enough about me. That was just my excuse for why I didn't watch TV for 3 years.
That was a complete. That's like a complete hermit mode story. I've never gone off the grid like that. And the reason I asked if you lived in your van was because when I moved out to LA, that's what I did for a little while. Um, and so I had a whole methodology down for it of, living in a Walmart parking lot and brushing your teeth at Walmart or at the gym and taking showers there and parking
Please
your.
fill me in more on that. So okay, so you were the extra, and then you did that for a whole school year, basically. Then ended and then you're like, I'm gonna try LA, and you basically just drove out there in a van, and you had no job lined up. Did you drive out there alone?
I drove out there alone. Yeah.
And
I
you had
you know
no. Did you have anyone else that you knew out there that you can meet up with?
so in Maryland, I didn't know many people who were interested in the film industry to begin with, and the few that were not. I did not have the. I don't know what the word is. The courage, the I don't know, the idiotic ape brain to decide to get in a car with me and go to LA. And so I did it alone. And did I know anyone in LA? I knew one or two guys that had graduated from my high school like 10 years before I did. And I had talked to them because they had grown up in my town, and I had talked them online through whatever referrals that other people had made for me. And those two guys were like, Nick, when you come out here, we'll help you get a PA job or whatever. And so I thought, oh, work is lined up for me. I'll get out here. I have connections already. This business is about who you know, not what you know. And so I don't know anything, but it's all right because I know people. I get out there, and it was very much a false promise. There was no work lined up for me, and all the work that was there was unpaid. People were happy to have a free PA. People were not happy to pay a PA.
Of
And
course.
so yeah, I did a lot of free work, um, not just as a PA, but editing and doing digital color for people on their little short films and pitch projects and whatnot. And so that's how I made connections during the first, I guess, couple years of my career. Luckily, at the time, I had a very relevant computer skill set because I had done a year of computer science coursework in school and just generally tech savvy. And so I found work at an IT company without a degree, which is pretty rare.
Yeah.
And we were supporting just major organizations like the Warner Brothers lot and STX Entertainment, major entertainment companies because it's LA and they outsource all of their IT. And so I did that for a number of years. Worked in IT for a total of 5 years
Okay. So
while
that's
I
how
was doing
the
entertainment.
sort of like the secret sauce of surviving was like you started out basically working for free and we're living out of your van, but you did end up getting an IT job, which is in the entertainment industry, but you just weren't really a part of the entertainment. You're just the IT guy for the big companies. But at the same time, like you're in the heart of it, so step one is like basically just being there. You're essentially the way I people people who always tried to get me to come out to LA, they're just like, you just have to be here because essentially once you're here, you're in the heat of it. Like just being in LA is important to people there because it shows that you're dedicated to, entertainment, and you're not just some guy. That's a big deal to people. Not only and then it's easier to make connections because you're just there. So anyway, so all right. Then what happened after doing IT? Like what was your first kind of big break in a way that I guess what led to then voice acting? Or did you do any acting before voice acting that was relevant? Like did you act in any TV shows or anything like that?
I mean, besides the background extra stuff that I had been doing early on, I was taking all kinds of acting classes to train on camera, voiceover, just the whole gamut. And so, um, and I was doing that while working in IT. You know, I would work my day job from, you know, 8 to 6 or whatever, and then immediately get off work, then drive across the entire city. LA is urban sprawl. It's not really one city. It's a collection of many cities, and it takes an hour to get from one side to the other. And so I'd get off work after working all day, drive to the other side of LA, take an hour, take 3 hours of classes, then drive all the way back home. And so that's what I did for many years. And how I actually got into voice acting was after taking all of those classes and workshops and doing all of that for years. I worked with a demo producer called Chuck Duran. He's a demo producer who creates voiceover demo reels for celebrity voice actors, basically, and a
Okay.
lot of non-celebrities as well. But he has a show on YouTube with his co-host Stacy J called VO Buzz Weekly. It's pretty popular among people who watch voiceover related content, and he produced a couple of demos for me. And then the pandemic happened, and I started sending out my reels to pretty much every agency in Hollywood, hoping one would bite. And you know, you send out 100 or 200 emails, hoping one will bite. And I was lucky enough that in early 2021, a top agency caught wind of them and actually wanted to sign a contract with me. And so um, that's when the voiceover career officially started. A lot of prep work in advance, but once I was there, I had done so much training and practice and had so much experience with it already that I was a strong auditioner going in, and so I was very quickly able to find the roles that worked for me and figure out which ones to audition for, which ones to not, and yeah, that's when things started to take off.
Okay, so as essentially you garnered a skill set at basically working at night after your day job, acting lessons, and that also included voice. You must, yeah, you have a talent because like I watch your reels and stuff, and you go through like a million voices and
Oh,
can
thank
even
you, man.
mimic other people's voices. Did you have a natural talent for that, or did you sort of start just general lessons and then realize that you had a knack for that, or was that something that you kind of always liked to do and thought you might get into professionally when you were younger?
I think I was infatuated with the concept of it when I was younger. Like, yeah, I was a big Star Wars fan when I was a kid, and I remember being even in elementary school, and then watching, you know, like Justice League cartoons or Batman the Animated Series, and seeing the credits roll around, and you see Mark Hamill's name, and I recognized Mark Hamill's name as a Star Wars fan, but I had no idea he was the Joker or Solomon Grundy or this entire cast of voices that he can put on. And that was so amazing to me because I knew him as this archetypal hero in Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
And so I think that's when the infatuation started. But, you know, I don't know if it was a self-fulfilling prophecy that because I was so interested in it, I developed this skill set, or if it was a coincidence that when my voice dropped, I had all of this range built in to my instrument. I have no idea how to answer that question, but people ask me all the time, but yeah, I've been interested in it for longer than I've had this instrument, longer than I've had this voice, and
So
so
yeah, it was it'd be like me saying like ev- although right now it's like my main thing is like writing comics, but that wasn't my initial knack. It was like, my initial thing was like everybody, I wanted to direct movies.
yeah.
And then going through like your path, it may have been like acting or basically, whatever your grand vision is, we all kind of sprawl into different little skill sets from editing, and you end up, anybody in the film, I feel like, ends up learning everything, because at some point they have to do every single role on the project, especially for someone that wanted to take helm of a whole project, like a whole something that you is in your head that you need to bring out. But so it sounds like you did exactly what you need to do. Is basically you had the knack, took the risk, drove out there, went through, did the work, did it overnight, then got a professional demo reel made, sent it out to hundreds of people. So you actually sent it to agencies, or whenever you said you send it out to hundreds of people, who were those people that you were sending it to, and how did you get that list? For example, if I, had sent out my portfolio, I would want to develop a list, which is something I actually do, and I actually like give these lists to people that are like seeking it, like publishers and stuff like that. But so did you develop a list of agencies, and how'd you get these people? Who did you send it to, and how'd you find them?
Yeah, so they're predominantly agents and managers who were working in either the voice acting space specifically or the broadly acting space, but also represented voice actors.
Okay.
Uh, and at the time, there was this booklet that they printed out, and it's also online. It's called the Voiceover Resource Guide. I don't know if they still update it or if it's current, but at the time there was something called the Voiceover Resource Guide, which had a list of all of the top demo producers and pretty much every agent working in the business that might be worth sending your materials to. And so I queued it up into a long, BCC list basically. And then for many of those agents, the ones that I actually had a vested interest in or had seen a VO Buzz Weekly podcast episode about, because they interview agents, I would watch the full episode, learn something about them, and then write a very custom email to that agent saying, "Oh, I watched your VO Buzz Weekly podcast episode, and I really liked when you said this. That really resonates with my career specifically, or I think you might be interested in taking a look at my demos based on what you guys are currently looking for and what the trends are in your opinion." And so, sort of playing to the crowd there, and
Perfect.
it worked eventually.
Yeah, you did. That's how you have to send cold emails, is you can't make them fully cold. You have to do the work of researching exactly who you're sending it
Yeah.
to and make it personal as much as you can. Even if you don't know them, you got to find, you watch the videos that they're on. Well done to you, sir, for doing that. Because
I
so
worked
many
in
people
sales.
don't.
I worked in sales for one semester in college, and that's how I learned that we sell musical instruments. I worked at a music shop, and so I was like, "Oh, okay." Yeah, because the
Oh,
last thing people want to buy is a used musical instrument or rent a used musical instrument. But that's what our stock was. It was just used crap, and so I had to learn very quickly how to sell something.
I didn't even realize. Yeah,
Live
that's
well.
what that is. I guess it's sales.
It's sales, yeah.
Yeah, it's a numbers game. Okay, so you sent it out, and then someone bit, and what? I guess let's just say, like, of your list 100, we all kind of mentally view, there's the top 10, there's the Ivy Leagues of who you really want to get with, and then there's like the
Yeah.
middle where you'd be super happy if any of them reach out, and then there's like some where you're like, I know that, like, this is bare minimum. Like, where on the scale did like you finally get bites from, and and did you have to turn anybody down or anything like that, or you had to like make everybody that's the crazy thing about this industry, is with anything you go years with nothing, constant struggling, and then you finally get like two bites at once, and you're stuck with this crazy decision of like, oh no, do I basically burn this bridge to do this thing, which might not pan out, or like you're always like, you'll get a response from that Ivy League, but then at the same time you get something from like the middle, but they're like kind of like demanding, like, I need an answer fast, but you're like, oh, I have to like stall in case like the Ivy Leagues respond back a second time and say, because that's what happens is someone will say, I'm interested and then leave you hanging for a while. But like, so did you run into anything like that at all?
Yeah, all that kind of stuff happened to me. There's an organization called SOVAS, the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences, and they're kind of like the voiceover equivalent of the Motion Picture Academy.
Okay.
And they host a thing every year called Agent Speed Dating. And I applied for Agent Speed Dating. You had to pay for it. And they put you in a queue with Hollywood's top voiceover agents. And it's like a rotating Zoom call where every 5 minutes you get yanked out of the Zoom call and then dropped in with a new agent. And you got 5 minutes to basically show your demo reel, get some feedback, sell yourself, maybe get signed if you're really lucky. And it was a call I had with about 20 agents, all of whom were top agents. And I got glowing feedback, in my opinion, from all 20. Not a single one of them wanted to sign me, though.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's when the cold emailing had to continue. And so I probably sent 200 agent emails or whatever. Some of the ones I really liked, I would send follow-up emails to or whatever. And sometimes they bite and they get back to you and go, cool demos, tell me a little bit about yourself or whatever. And you respond, and then they never get back with you. You never hear
Yeah.
back.
Yep.
All kinds of stuff like that. But I was a non-union actor at the time. And my current agent, who is most certainly in the Ivy League caliber of the different tiers, the S tier, so to speak.
Okay.
She got back with me and she said, "We're not taking non-union talent right now. It's just not in the cards for us because of the pandemic situation going on and limited work as is for union actors. We can't take a non-union actor." And so what I did was I grinded out my SAG vouchers, which is there's an entire process you have to do to join SAG-AFTRA, the union.
Yeah. What? Briefly run through, what does that take?
All right, so you have two.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. So you have one of two methods. You can there's no easy way to explain this, but you can do background work that qualifies for a SAG voucher, the rules of which are almost arbitrary. But basically, if you're in a background work gig, there are a handful of background vouchers allotted by SAG-AFTRA available to specific actors, and the production chooses who to give them to. And if you accumulate 3 of those background vouchers, you are then eligible to join the union. I had one from House of Cards back in the day before I moved, and so I only needed 2 more. The thing is, you can do background work for months and months and months, and some people do it for years without getting a single background voucher.
Huh.
I know a guy who's been doing background work off and on for 10 years, over 10 years, and still does not have a single one. And
Okay.
so it's definitely,
So you can't
luck
just like
connected.
apply. They have to give it to you for doing work.
Yeah, that's right. So that's it's a whole process, and
Okay.
the game of finding your SAG vouchers is taking a look at open calls for background performers on like Central Casting or wherever, and really having an eye for which ones might have a background voucher associated with them. They're usually smaller days where there's only maybe 10 background actors on that day. You have a much higher chance of getting a background voucher on a day where there's 10 background actors versus a stadium scene for a sporting event where there are 100 or 1,000 background actors.
Yeah,
And
makes
so
sense.
little things like that, if you have a special skill that they're looking for, much easier to get a background voucher that way. If they're looking for somebody to mime playing the piano, but they want an actual pianist to mime playing the piano, as silly as that sounds, they actually want an actual pianist to sit there and pretend to play the piano without actually playing anything.
Okay.
That'll get you a background voucher on certain productions, depending on the budget scale of that production and so many other factors. But eventually, after a number of months, I had gotten my 3, and I had done it the hard way, the way I think most actors get their background vouchers. The other way to get your background vouchers, you don't even need 3 vouchers. It's called a tapped Hartley. They'll basically give you a golden elevator into the union, which is if you have a line in a movie. And so, thing is, in order to be cast in a movie, you typically have to be a union member with an agent. And so, the only way people really, for the most part, get their lines in movies is through nepotism.
Okay.
Nepo babies, or people who know somebody who's directing a major production will cast their friend or their friend's kid or their own kid or whatever, and give them a line in a movie, and they get an instant ticket into the union.
Dang, so
So,
no wonder it's so hard. It's so hard as an actor to break in. I mean, I knew it was rough, but like now I get like why like the whole union thing is like such a big deal. Like once you're in, it's like a big deal, and just getting in is like something that's extremely difficult to do because it's like a catch-22. You don't normally get a role unless you're in the union, and you don't get a line role, like unless you've been like a background or like paid your dues in some other way. So like it's just they try to, I guess it's I guess from their perspective, it's a smart way to do it to where it's like you can only get into this industry if you work hard, I guess, or have some kind of unique talent that people are seeking out and not just
or have some
everybody
kind
showing
of
up.
connection that'll allow you to subvert all of the hard work that it takes to
Of
get there.
course, yeah.
And so that's how the industry works. But yeah, I basically became SAG eligible, reached back out to that same agent, who was really like truly one of my top choices. And she got back with me immediately and was like, cool, let's sign a contract. Let's get you started. And
Awesome.
so I was on what they call a hip pocket. It's like a probationary contract for the first like 90 days or whatever, where they do this with all their new talent, where they unless you're a celebrity, they do this with all their talent to make sure that you actually know how to audition, and you don't just have really good sounding demo reels but don't know how to perform in an actual audition or a booked scenario if you actually go in a session.
So they
And so
basically like give you a time frame of 90 days or something where they say it can be void if you suck.
that's essentially what it is, yes.
Okay.
But I booked within my 90 days, and even if I hadn't, I would have probably gotten signed. I don't think it's so harsh that if you don't make us money in the first 90 days, we're dropping you. I don't think it's quite that harsh, but it's it keeps the actor accountable and gives the agency an escape clause in the case that they don't want to work with you. But it worked out. They were super happy with my work, and I booked Squid Game later that year.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, so this was not that long ago, 2020, 2021.
2021, not that long ago at all.
Dang, and so yeah, at the beginning of this video, I'll probably like put like your credits and stuff, but it's like you Squid Game was like the biggest show of that year. I mean in the
It
world,
was
right?
Netflix's
Did
biggest
did
show of
you
all time. So
Yeah, that's what I'm like that it's like there's nothing top Squid Game to this day, I think. And did you was that did you book that before it was out, or did you already know it was a big deal when you got it, or was it still in the like it's big over here and now it's gonna go? I can't like I don't know the full history of Squid Game. I was late to
yeah,
watch it in the first place, but it's like crazy how big that was that it was like if you didn't see it, you were missing out on like you didn't know who was president or something like that.
yeah. So earlier that year, I had done one smaller dub on a show that never made it big, but it was on Netflix, a Korean show, and I had a small part in that one, doing mostly like pilot voiceover. So it's like
Okay.
air traffic control, like pilot VO, just like I don't even know. I don't even know how to do it anymore. I just read the script, and it's
Okay.
like flight number whatever to air traffic control. We are Mayday, Mayday. It was just that kind of
And
stuff.
you were essentially the English actor, uh, you were the English voice of a version for because it was a Korean show and you were
That's
doing the
right.
English version. And the same
So I
thing
was
on Squid Game, you were the English voice because that was originally in Korean, but like you had a major role, but it was just that it wasn't your face or you played the square guy, right?
that's
And
right. Yeah.
did you and other roles on that too, right? Or was that
Yeah.
just like the main one? But yeah,
It
so
was
like
just that
no
one,
one saw
but
his face.
but basically, I started with that one small dub, and it never took off. And the director brought me back to work on some new show months later, as she had remembered my voice and thought, "Oh, okay, that pilot VO must have reminded her of something because she thought this droning masked figure would be a really good fit for me." And so I didn't have to audition for it, which is wild for a beginner actor to not have
Whoa.
to audition for a part that would become as big as it did. Um, but nobody knew it would become as big as it did because the entire time we were recording it, we just thought it would be like the previous show we had worked on, just kind of like whatever. Maybe some Korean people will see it in Korea, but nobody really cares,
Oh, okay.
right?
So at the time, it wasn't a hit yet. Like it
Wasn't
was
even
just
it
like,
wasn't out. Yeah,
okay, wow, that's so amazing. So it was
there's a
just like,
months before it came out, and the visual effects weren't finished. And so if you remember from the show, they have a piggy bank in the dormitory which comes down and it's full of money.
yeah.
And it's like a really iconic visual, seeing that big translucent piggy bank full of wads of cash. But when I was recording it, it was a solid gray ball, placeholder visual effects. And so it just came down and I was like, this is so fucking stupid looking.
Wow. Okay. So it hadn't released yet. Okay. Now so I was thinking it released in Korea in Korean, but it wasn't like that. So it released worldwide all at the same time in multiple languages. So so the director that you worked with was the director of the series, or was there like a separate English speaking director? I'm totally stupid in this world, so you'll have to fill me in on like the
No, that's
actual.
fine. Actually, earlier I thought the jumpsuit you were wearing was the one from Squid Game, but I realized it's black and not
Oh,
green.
if I had that, I definitely would. That's what's so funny is your character is a Halloween costume. I should have
That's right.
gotten it and wore it.
I knew like I was online and I was seeing people from my high school and people I went to college with dressed up as the character. And I'm like, people are dressing up as my character for Halloween now.
That's awesome. Nobody, I don't know anybody that can say that in my network at all.
And I have a box of Funko Pops on the other side of my monitor right now and action figures and all that stuff. And
Oh
so
my goodness, we'll get into that. You are collectible on yourself. Like you could make a whole career just being a Squid Game collectible and
it's
signing
helped it's
those.
helped during a very brutal strike here. But um
Sorry, yeah, let's
you're asking about localization. Yeah, you're asking about localization. How it works is localization companies are almost always outsourced um, to one of the major companies, Iuno VSI, Igloo, one of the other ones. And they have separate ADR directors that handle all of the dubbing. And that's the case for every language they dub in. There's a Portuguese ADR director, there's a Castilian Spanish ADR director, there's an ADR director for every language that it's dubbed in because it's done at
Okay.
a different studio somewhere in the world. And for English, I worked with I had our own director, and yeah, she cast me in that, and I did the English voice.
Okay, gotcha. No, I mean that seems like the obvious way to do it, but I didn't know it worked that way. But
Yeah.
so okay, so you're doing Squid Game, don't know it's gonna be a hit yet. And so then I guess I know I know you worked on video games as well. So how did you book like what were you on? Modern Warfare, Call of Duty? Well, to me, they all blend together. So fill me in on the next steps after that.
Uh, I was uh, I was in last year's entry of Modern Warfare. It's Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. And my character was pulled into the next one as well. So I'm also in Modern Warfare 3, the one that just released a few weeks ago. And I play Horangi. He's the or Horangi. He's the South Korean character, and so the Call of Duty games are full of diverse characters from around the world, so that players can sort of have their own sort of avatar that they identify with, and take them into the battlefield and dress them up and whatever. And I play the Korean one.
Nice. So you are once again an icon to an entire huge swath of the full Earth's population.
Yeah,
Of one
whatever
of the
that.
biggest games in the world, they're like, you're the avatar to an entire country.
Whatever that means. Sure,
To
I'll
me,
take.
I think of things that way. I don't know if it's like just like narcissistic or what, but it's like everything I associate with like, oh, on a worldwide basis, that's like a huge feat. Like,
I
or
mean,
just,
it's
I don't know. It's just
narcissistic if
interesting
you
to
say
think
it
about
about yourself, but it's not narcissistic if you say it about me, so it's fine.
it.
I won't say it about myself.
That's how I would view it if I booked that gig, where it's
I
like,
mean,
how do you explain
it's
it to your
difficult
parents?
to, it's difficult to fully wrap your head around it and, explain it to your parents. Uh, my dad luckily had some experience as a gamer and played FPS games in his younger years, and so he picked up gaming again. He's a my parents are empty nesters now, and so
And he played the game, and he was
my
like,
dad my
not
dad
as
has
you.
more time on his hands than he'd probably like to admit, and so he was like, I'm gonna play Call of Duty now, and that's what he did.
Oh, that's awesome though. Like, so besides that, I guess okay. So now let's jump to like where. So if that was just 2021, where are you at now? And what do you have? I know you had. What's the new show that you had that's either starting this month or didn't? Don't you have something that's starting tomorrow?
So Squid Game: The Challenge, the reality series produced by Netflix, based on the season one of Squid Game, releases today.
Oh,
Released
nice.
at midnight last night Pacific time, and so that's out. And yeah, I've started sharing a little bit about it on Twitter and Instagram, and so
Oh,
uh,
I'm gonna try to post this tonight or tomorrow then, so that we can
yeah,
get
go
like
for
the
it.
boom, the launch. So, that's amazing. I feel like I was on Netflix this morning and they did not recommend that to me, but that's probably because I was on my daughter's account and they recommend others like her kind of like
Oh, they probably
kids
restricted
stuff.
the kids, yeah, to
Yeah,
kids
so
stuff.
dang it. If I was on my own account, I probably would have seen like the promo for that. But so the Squid Game has a reality series and that launches tonight. And that's so aside from that, do you have anything else that's like coming up that do they tell you like, hey, hype this, or is it just all like kind of your own thing? Like, do you
I
have any incentive to make it a bigger thing, or is there anyone on like the film side or your agent or anyone that's ever like, hey, here's the links that you need to hype in order to make this like, is that a thing? I mean, in comics, obviously it is. Your publisher kind of acts as your agent, and you are responsible for your own, success. So everyone's sort of like telling you, like, "Hey, let's make this a big deal." So is that at all the case in acting or anything like that?
I think with traditional linear format television on cable networks, there was a profit motivation for actors to actually promote their work in the fashion you're talking about with comics, because more views equals more residuals. That's not so much the case anymore with streaming and limited residuals, and with video games and no residuals. And so any promotion I do is either a contractual obligation I have with my employer on that job. I have to talk about it, or talk about it according to their guidelines, or it's simply out of personal vanity and a will to self promote and brag about myself. That's it.
Okay. Is there so like what does your agent give you any guidelines on sort of how to book gigs? Like, do they give you like, okay, so they basically it's just it's just a free. So, do you go out? Do you basically have to wait for your agent?
Does your publisher tell you how to sell comics? Probably not.
No, yeah, no, not at all. Well, but I say that, but they do. Like, so whenever some of them, whenever you start, they'll give you sort of like a package or like a just something they send everybody that says, here's like the basics of how this works if you don't know. He like it's almost like a PDF that's like it's kind of like whenever you get a job for any kind of job where you get like the orientation kind of guidebook. I have had publishers that sort of give you something like that to where it's like, hey, here's sort of the um here's what deadlines matter, here's what this works, here's your editor that you're going to be working with. So yeah, that's what I was wondering is like whenever you sign with an agent, sometimes I thought maybe they might give you some kind of like, or even if it's not your agent, is there anyone else in the industry that basically like, is there a sort of methods to actually book more? Like, is there steps that you can take to, like you were saying, you had to go through some kind of hustling to get those vouchers for the union. Is there a similar steps that you take to get better roles or work on better movies? Or does your agent send you things and then you choose them, or do they give you audition? Do you have to find auditions yourself, and like how much of it is on you and how much is it just waiting on them?
I think for an actor that doesn't have a representative, an agent or a manager, it's a lot of searching for auditions on casting sites like Actors Access or LA Casting. But I mean, for me at this stage in the game, I'm with a top agency, and so I don't have to go looking for my own auditions anymore. I am sometimes requested by certain buyers, and they will send me an email directly, but I will still loop them through my agent and handle it that way. But yeah, my agent sends me pretty much all the auditions I need because they're an in-demand agency, and so everybody goes to them shopping for actors anyway. And so that's been a true blessing for my career. Was there another part of your question?
No, you answered that. It's
Okay,
I guess now I'll break into sort of what so you're also a writer, and
that's right.
do you also act that's not just voice acting, in a sense that, so are you also seeking work in front of the camera?
Yeah, I'm an on-camera actor as well. Uh, I'm not particularly known for my on-camera acting, but I have done on-camera acting over the years and plan to continue to do it. Um, I have hopes that in the next year or two, my on-camera career will start to catch up to my voiceover career, and they'll sort of live harmoniously as one acting career, as opposed to sort of treating on-camera versus voiceover as a separate thing. To me, they're all the same thing. They
Yeah.
utilize most of the same skill set, most of the same, networking, and so it's one and the same to me.
So with like your agency or your agent, uh, is there a way that you can sort of like, do they also can they also act as your agent as like a literary agent for the stuff you write, or do you have to sort of like is it go to a different, can you have an agent for your acting roles and then also have a literary agent at the same agency? Like, do you ask your agent like, "Hey, can you also shop around these screenplays I've written?" Or do they like say, "No, you're going to need to send your submit to another guy at like how does that work?"
And so my agency only represents voiceover actors. They
Oh,
represent
okay.
some of the biggest voiceover actors, and they represent a lot of celebrities who also do voiceover. But those individuals are represented for literary purposes or for their on-camera careers by other agencies elsewhere. And so that's super common in the industry. It's actually, I think, very rare that you'd have one actor represented by one company for every sort of venture that they do. And so it's pretty rare for one actor to be represented by one agency for TV, theatrical, voiceover, public appearances, etc., under one roof. And that
Okay.
typically applies to agencies like William Morris Endeavor, UTA, CAA, those kinds.
That yeah, that's what I was thinking, was like you were with one of those three and that somebody else at the giant agency acts as it. But yeah, I knew that there was like, you look up anybody on IMDb Pro that, and yeah, they've got 12 different agents for every little thing that they do.
Yeah.
So, and I just wasn't sure, like, is there a way that you like, can your agent like give you a reference or referral to another agent that they know that's in the literary side, or do you just have to just hustle and grind the same way regardless of them?
It's essentially a hustle and grind regardless, because I mean, uh, I don't think most voiceover agents are going to have an in with a literary agent, for example. Those are two completely different things. It's like writing versus drawing comics. Just because you can do one does not mean you can do the other. And
Yeah.
so
No, it's so funny because like with I have connections with people in entertainment, and it's so hard for like, they'll respect me super hardcore as a comic book writer, and then if I try to like delve into like, hey, can you help me write for the video games that you write for, or like something like that, it's always like a, oh, phew, like it's hard to break from like the path that they see you as, like, this is, oh, you're this guy, so stick to that. And if we find a way for things to mesh, we'll talk about that later, but it's not as like simple as to just be like, oh yeah, because like you're saying, it's all about who you know in the beginning. But even if you know people, and I get it, because I'm on the other end where it's just like, I don't have a job for you, I'm not the one that's hiring you. I'm not like, might have connections and friends, but we're all in the same boat here, where it's like we can't just all referral each other to this. It's in the end, it's just like we all sink together or rise or whatever. And you
Yeah.
can't take that risk, or it's not, it's a lot of times it's not even possible. Like you said, everybody's in their own realm.
Yeah.
Um, but you are in a rare situation, like especially for my channel, in that you're somebody that's trying to break into comics, don't really have so you're at the stage to where most people that are probably following me are very um in your boat, or like in your camp, to where they are trying to break in, uh and you're experiencing like all the I guess the barriers to entry, or like how difficult it can be to actually make a professional comic with professionals, and not have to do everything yourself. Because that's what happens, is like, if you are an artist or both a writer and artist, you can sort of, your barrier is basically whatever time you don't have, or really your skill set you don't have. But once you're actually able to start, hiring people, then you hit the barriers of, well, I need to get someone that's of a caliber that's going to draw eyeballs, without being outrageously expensive. And then you have to keep layering up, and then it's hard to get people who are willing to s- uh submit to a project that's as big as yours might be, and so that's why you see so many people when they break in, they do an anthology, and or they do some kind of little thing, or they do a web comic. And so I guess we'll just end on kind of, what are you, as much as you want to share, what have you been your experiences in working in comics, and what are your next plans to do in the comic scene? And I guess also, what's your next plans in voice acting or whatever?
Sure. I've been a comics fan my entire life, and I used to go to Comic Cons with my own drawings and show them to every artist I could meet from Marvel or DC. And I have pictures from when I was a kid with Stan Lee, and those were all things that I was very interested in. And I wanted to be I wanted to be a comic book artist at one point in time before I found other passions and realized I was only a decent artist, not a great one. Um, but yeah, over the last couple of years, I've had opportunities to pitch TV show concepts to major studios and major producers. And while I'm grateful to have had those opportunities, they never go anywhere, uh, because what studios are interested in nowadays is value of IP. Can we sell toys off of this? Can we turn it into a theme park? Can we license this out to video game companies, etc.? And so I had pitched a show to a major studio. I won't say its name, but it rhymes with Blamazon Blind Blivio, and um, and they rejected the pitch because they said, oh, if you look at our other shows, they're based off comic books. They have baked in audiences, and yours does not, and so that's going to be the reason we pass on this, despite the fact that we love the script, um,
Huh.
and the pitch bible and everything that went along with it. And so I thought to myself, I was like, all right, if you're going to reject a pitch because it doesn't have a baked in audience and source material, I think that's my opportunity to create a baked in audience and a source material. And so I immediately I have a stack of comics next to me right now. This is just what I've read and am currently reading in the last 2 weeks. This is
Oh,
not my entire collection. My entire collection is on the bookshelf over there. This is just what I'm reading now.
You're in the game.
I'm in the game. Uh, and so I will admit I was ignorant to indie comics for a long time, and um I knew some of them, but I didn't know that many. And I thought indie comics were all like Witchblade. I thought they were all just like cheap excuses to show boobs and
A lot of
softcore.
it is, but
I mean,
yeah,
a
that's
lot
a
of it is, but that was my conception of indie comics. I was like, everything is Calvin and Hobbes, Garfield, and boobs. That's what it is. But I found that to not be the case. Like, what did I read? I read Dutch the other day. That was great. I just go into comic shops and I just pull number ones off the shelves, and then I just start new series all the time. Every time a new one comes out, and
you
I'm
we all pray for more of you. Just people that walk in, they're like, I just need all these number ones.
there's gotta be. I can't possibly be the only person who does that though, because
No, you're
it's
not.
so
Yeah,
much.
that's why it's still a big industry. Like I go over the numbers like all the time. It's actually mind blowing to me. Like I didn't realize like just how big indie comics really are. That there's a lot of fans out there. And that's like so you're experiencing now, and like I also sort of hit the same kind of um not like mind blowing, but just whenever I first started, I kind of thought it would be easier, I guess you could say, to break into comics. Or I just sort of thought like if the way I sort of know how movies are made, I kind of know how comics are made, and I can afford to go into this, and then you realize like, oh man, like a lot of people are very serious about this, and there's although a lot of money in it, really not that much, and the really good talent is hard to come by, and in order to really make it affordable, you have to almost invest years and almost like find diamonds in the rough of people that are willing to work with you for such a long period of time, even though you don't have much of a background. And then even if you do, it's like they might not have the time, because you realize that somebody that's working on a series for full time is it's a long it's a lot of work. It's like a movie. It's like if someone's working on a movie this year, they're not working on any other movies. And if they're working on and even if that's just shooting for whatever it is, 3 weeks, 3 months, that the whole project is longer than that. And then they usually know the next couple of movies lined up while they're making that one. Um, so it's the same with comics, is that those that are like very talented, they are basically booked for years to come. So actually like finding someone that's uh, uh, for it is hard to do. And I just like didn't realize that. And I I don't yeah, I'm just gonna talk forever about this stuff, but it's just I know that you're in that same boat, and I know that a lot of other people that are reaching out to the channel and stuff, like that's why they watch my videos, is they're like, what can I do to sort of break into this industry without paying $1 million or uh making just kind of a shitty book. But
Yeah, I
I
mean, you're
sorry.
blessed to have. Sorry, did you want to say something?
No, I was basically just saying I'm going to leave it to you to close this out, or I'll talk
No,
forever.
I mean, you're blessed to have found the artists that you have, and I'm still in that process. I
It took me a
knew.
long time, though. I will say that is that it took work to find Gabriel, and he wasn't my first artist, and I sought him out for a long time, and I had to finally he had to find the window, and I had to present him the project he was willing to work on.
I
Um,
understand. Yeah.
but yeah, I am blessed to have to actually have found him, somebody that's is that talented, that was able to work with me and then continue to work with to me as well. And then because that's the beauty of it, is once I found him, it was easier to get other artists, because people have respect for his art. So other artists are basically like, oh, basically I have respect for you because I have respect for Gabriel, and it sort of just like built up my credibility. So yeah, uh I guess fill people in on where they can find more about you and anything else you want to close on. And then I will put the links to, obviously, just tell people to go to Netflix to see the new Squid Game. But anything else that you want me to link to or hype up, just let me know and put them in the links.
Yeah, I'll give you my link tree, but I'm on all social media at Nick J Martineau. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all those places. And because you have a comics readership as your audience, I will read you the log line of my comic and let that be a little tease for things to come in the new year. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
So my project I'm writing right now is 6 issue called Kage. And it's about an aging Korean military vet with PTSD and his unaccomplished American-born son, and they're navigating a life in a zombie-infested post-apocalyptic world. And so, I've seen plenty of zombie content with a lot of diversity, but I've always wondered, what does it look like when a traumatized Korean guy and his shithead son have to survive together in a post-apocalyptic world? And so that's what we're exploring.
Yeah. I'll admit to everybody, I read the script. It is amazing. Like, and if you want, like, yeah, I'll let people, if people want to put in the comment section their portfolios to audition to be an artist for that series, go for it. And
Sure, I'll take it. Yeah, it's been a months long scouting process to find an artist and one that's available. And I've talked to many artists from Marvel or DC, most of whom are not available, unfortunately. And so that's been the tricky part about it. I didn't realize how much work there was to go around. I thought the concept of the starving artist was alive and well. Apparently not for comic book artists if they're busy. And
no,
so
yeah, that's why it's such a big deal to to artists, and why it's like you see people talking about it all the time, is because they aren't starving for work, they're starving for well-paid work. Because like
yeah,
it's like for them, they have to pick and choose their projects, and not everyone is paying like enough for like the amount of time it takes them to do the work that they're doing. Is like it takes a long, it's just like anything else, to where it's few and far between. Like like you can find work as an actor any day, because people are always looking for them, but they might not pay you,
they
or they
might
might
not
pay
pay at
you
all. Yeah.
in literal peanuts, or or whatever. And then all of a sudden, like when you are a face, now you can give your price, and your price can be very high, and because you're basically their advertisement. Because it's like in comics, you are the star. Like your name is what ultimately, other it's like what sells the comic is like your name, your talent, you're the star of your project. So once you have a name, then all of a sudden you set a high price. But before that high price, when you're not a name, you're just like some kind of paid cog in a wheel to build the machine, and that just isn't worth as much. But the time it takes for an artist to do that, is really, it's a grind, because you're basically working on an hourly rate. And anyway, so I feel for the artists, and at the same time as I feel for us, that are trying to pay artists. And it's just like, but we don't, it's the same thing where like we're basically producers that we can't prove without proof of concept, we can't prove to our investors, even though it's often ourselves, like that we will be able to make the money back without named talent. And we can't afford to pay the artist the rate that they're asking in order to, it's just like, and readers won't necessarily pick it up, unless it's something, you have to, the whole point of my like channel is like, you have to find all these puzzle pieces to put them together to make it a worthwhile project. And, and it's like often what can make a book sell is you need like an artist that has a name, but actually getting them is a whole nother process. And yeah, so that's where you're at, is you are at the finding
I
the
know.
right artist stage for your project, which is a very high quality project. It can't
Thank
just
you.
be a willy-nilly artist. That's the thing is, that's the other thing is like, but you can pay professional rates, but
Yeah, yeah.
they have to provide the quality work. And so that's the catch 22, and the whatever you call it, the tug of war. So we will end on that note. Thanks a lot for coming on. And
Sure. Thanks for
whenever
having me.
you are at the sort of the finishing stages of your comic or any other things you want to promote. I definitely have a million other questions that I could dive into, especially as you go further into your career in both comics and acting and writing. So let's keep in touch, and in a year or two we can do this again.
All right. Later, Max.
Thanks a lot, man. See ya.
Have a good one. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.